Well, my name is Sophie, and I work in the field of developmental psychology in Abu Dhabi.
I know in North America, like you said, the discussion around mental health, there's a lot of access to it, whereas here, it's still at the starting point.
One of the studies that I was managing is a clinical trial for mothers who are using substances and who have young children under the ages of 3.
You've clearly mentioned secure attachment.
Is knowing that your caregiver will be there for you in a time of need. I wouldn't confuse it with being overly dependent.
How did your family take it when you mentioned to them that you wanted to move all the way across the world?
It wasn't easy at first, but they ended up visiting and they really loved the UAE.
The environment here is set up to help families succeed.
Helping people succeed in general. I mean, the UAE takes care of its people.
You told me yesterday you wanted to go to a beach club. We haven't been going enough.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to do?
Definitely.
Yeah, the weather's getting better.
Yeah.
Well, better for beach clubs. It's hot if you're not in the water.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You live in Abu Dhabi and Dubai sometimes?
I live in Abu Dhabi, but I'm considering moving to Dubai in about a year or so, maybe.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. Do you like Abu Dhabi more or Dubai more?
I definitely prefer living in Abu Dhabi. It's much calmer, less traffic. I live on Saadiyat, so it's very nice. Feels like a big resort community. But I like having the option of traveling to Dubai on weekends to hang out with friends and go to these beach clubs. So I'd rather live somewhere more calm and have the option to go to a bigger, maybe more exciting city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the sense I get from always being in Abu Dhabi. Like, people are calmer there. There's less traffic and it's less hectic.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is busier in Dubai, and I feel like a lot more is happening.
Yeah.
So, how if you're in a conference or convention and there's a lot of people getting introduced to each other, and someone pulls out their hand and says, "Hello, my name is so and so. What's your name and what do you do?" How would you answer that?
Yeah. Well, my name is Sophie. I am a researcher and lab manager currently, and I work in the field of developmental psychology. And I am currently working at NYU University in Abu Dhabi, and I've been there for about 8 months.
Okay. So researcher, what does that mean?
So my official title is research associate / lab manager. So my lab manager role consists of, overseeing and managing our research projects in the lab. So I work under a faculty member at NYU AD, and I oversee the projects, help with the execution. I have a series of administrative tasks as well, so ordering items for our research projects, ensuring our protocols are complying with the research ethics board, so all of that good stuff. And then another part of my role is to actually do research, and that can range from a variety of tasks. It's very different day to day. But currently I'm working or helping out on a meta-analysis. So I review papers, extract relevant data from those papers, synthesize it. I also help out with data collection in our lab. So when we run our studies, I help with recruiting students, getting them situated in the lab, explaining the protocol, getting their consent, and then actually collecting the data for our studies. Okay. So that's been a big part of what I do in my current position.
Okay. How did you fall into a researcher position, especially in developmental psychology?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because for a while I struggled a little bit to find my place and what I wanted to do. So there's a bit of a backstory. I completed my bachelor's degree in psychology, and after the 4 years, I felt like I didn't know much about research. I probably should have done more during those 4 years. I should have gotten more experience. So I ended up feeling a little bit lost, and that led me to looking into master's programs, so 2-year degrees where I could kind of further step into the research world, develop my skills, see if it's something I like. And that's exactly what I did. So I did my master's degree in research oriented. And my thesis was centered on health psychology. So not exactly what I'm doing now. And I liked it, but it wasn't really, didn't really spark, a passion within me. And through networking and connections, I landed a job as lab manager for a faculty at the University of Ottawa.
In Canada?
Yeah, in Canada. And that's where I really started in the field of developmental psychology. So in that lab, we studied early adversity and the effects of different types of adversities on, developmental trajectories of different populations. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that mean young people, young kids?
Yeah, we studied a range of ages, but, we didn't just look at infants or children. We also looked at caregivers, the caregiving environment, so all ages, I would say. Yeah.
So caregiver environment, how much of an impact was that on the children they were raising or helping raise?
I mean, it's big. It's huge. It's a very important factor in people's lives. Caregivers who are supportive and caring and sensitive can really help foster a really healthy and positive trajectory for an individual. And the reverse is also true. If you are born in an environment where your caregivers are less attuned to your needs, less responsive, less caring, that can also have negative consequences on your life trajectory. So yeah, that's kind of what we studied. And in that lab, our specialty was executing community-based research. So that means that we would partner with community organizations, or they would come to us and ask us to answer a specific question, or, for some of our projects, we would sit down with our partners and develop our research questions together. And throughout the research project, we would work really in synchrony to make sure that the research was aligning with what the partner needs, and also that their needs can be answered by our research and our resources.
And when you say partner, who do you mean? The community itself, or the individual you're trying to help?
Yeah, it usually it starts with a specific agency or a partner. So I'll give you an example. One of the studies that I was managing is a clinical trial testing 2 interventions that are currently offered in Canada for mothers who are using substances, so drugs, alcohol, other addictive substances, and who have young children under the ages of 3. So, there's a crisis in North America, but in Canada as well. A lot of people are using substances. A lot of people live with addiction, and some of those people are mothers. And mothers are very important, and they play an integral part of, children's lives. So we need to support them, and we need to help them through their parenting, adjusting to motherhood, with an addiction, helping them stop their addiction, and just really supporting the mother-child relationship. So we partnered with these 2 agencies specifically and proposed this research idea to them. And throughout this longitudinal study, they are also reaping the benefits of understanding how their program works, how their program is helping their clients, and at the same time, we gain valuable insights on addiction, motherhood, how to support children, what are the most effective programs for mothers who are using substances, and how can we share those valuable components with all the other programs that are currently existing. How can we share our discovered knowledge with the people who need it the most?
Did anything stand out about the impact of those mothers that were addicted or had issues? Did anything stand out in terms of how it impacted the kids or the babies from them growing up to be lacking in school, for example, or socially, they have social anxiety or they struggle to integrate themselves and make friends? I wonder if anything stood out or anything you guys were able to deduct from that research that would have been beneficial for kids growing up without a healthy environment around them.
Yeah, I think I did not work specifically with the families. My role was more removed, but I did work closely with our community-based researchers who were embedded in those centers, and they would share with me that, the children had very different experiences. Each family was very unique in what they were experiencing, what the children's needs were. So it varied really from family to family. One thing that was really nice to see and hear about that was very clear in both of these programs that we were looking at is that each mother wants to improve her life. The mothers are seeking services to better themselves, to better their situation. So despite all the hardships, the traumas that they experienced, and continuous adversities, they choose to show up every day and to try to improve their lives for themselves, also for their child. So as difficult as it can be, it's very special to see their drive and motivation. I think that's what makes the work really meaningful. Yeah, that's something that definitely stood out to me.
Was there a time where you look at a situation and say the mother has to be separated from the child based off of how bad her condition is, and then the relationship is as well? Does that happen? Of course.
There are laws and regulations in Canada that would decide on this. I don't think it's something that was frequently dealt with, although to be fair, I'm not a clinician and I was not in the center every day to see these cases. But of course it happens. There are strict rules and guidelines as to what can happen, what are the limitations for the child's safety. But I do know that the clinicians and these organizations, they work very hard to prevent those situations from happening, because of course it's harmful in a sense to separate a child from their parent. They try to avoid it as much as possible. Yeah.
Okay. What's the program called, if anybody wanted to research it or look into it?
So the program, there are two. The first one is called Breaking the Cycle. And the other program that we looked at is the Maxine Wright Community Health Center. Yeah, so they both offer services for mothers who are substance involved and have young children, although the age ranges slightly differ. At Breaking the Cycle, the children that they see range from 0 to 6. At Maxine Wright, it's from 0 to 3 years.
Okay, Breaking the Cycle.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Does that mean usually it's a cycle of bad decisions maybe that gets to a point where you have to stop it and start a new cycle? What's the wisdom behind the
wisdom, I would say, is breaking the cycle of adversity, intergenerational transmission. And I wouldn't frame it in the sense of bad decisions, because oftentimes things happen to the moms. There are things in life that happen that are completely out of their control. addiction is a very slippery slope. You know, there are a lot of cumulative adversities. It's hard to
pinpoint
and to catch your breath sometimes. So it's about breaking the cycle from one generation to the next, I think. Yeah.
I've heard it being used also in challenging households where, you know, the father, for example, or even the mother are not mentally capable of dealing with the stresses of motherhood or the responsibility of it, or fatherhood rather, as well. And so there's a cycle of violence that occurs because that's the only way they learned how to deal with adversity,
sure.
is through how their father or mother dealt with the adversity, and you see generational impact on it as well. So
a lot of behaviors are learned through observation, and parents are models for children. So absolutely, like things like maltreatment, child abuse is also intergenerational in nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so breaking the cycle. Are you still involved to some capacity with breaking the cycle?
I am, yes. It's a project that I hold dear to my heart. I was there from, you know, the initial phases. So it's very special to me, and I keep in contact with the team. And I also have the privilege of being able to contribute to some of the data that's being collected. So I have a sort of role as a research consultant, if you will, where I have access to some of the data that is collected, and I view the data. So these are video recordings of the moms and their children who are just engaging in free play, and I watch these videos and I code them to look at maternal sensitivity, and specifically it's a longitudinal study. So we
can you explain what longitudinal study is?
Yes. Yeah. So we are measuring specific variables at different times. So it's anticipated to be a 2-year study where we have a baseline, a 6-month data time point, a 1 year, and then a 2-year to see the evolution of mothers and their children throughout the program. And the hypothesis is that behaviors are going to improve throughout the program. So, I'm looking specifically at maternal sensitivity and how this might shift through the intervention. So through a higher dosage of receiving the intervention, we're expecting that mothers will become more sensitive to their children's needs.
You said coding. What does that mean? Does that mean watching and observing and taking notes? And how does that work in your... Because when I hear coding, I think computer and, JavaScript or whatever. So.
Yeah, it's not quite that. It's different. There are different versions. You can, for example, have behavioral coding, which is what I'm doing. You can have narrative coding, which is something I'm doing as part of my current job. But behavioral coding consists of watching an interaction. So it could be live or a video recording, and looking for specific behaviors. And which behaviors we're looking at are determined by the tool that we're using. We use the maternal behavior cue sort, which is kind of a series of cards or statements that describe behaviors. And we're looking to see if these behaviors are present, if they're absent, to what degree are they present, are there missed opportunities? So for instance, if one of the items is there's good synchrony between the mom and her child. So a sensitive mom would be, would know what her child is wanting to do, would not rush her child, would be very in synchrony. If the child becomes fussy, she would adjust her behavior to that. So how present is that in the interaction? Is it very present? Is it not present at all? Or is it kind of somewhere in the middle? So we have a series of 25 items or behaviors that we're looking for. And once we, code each of these, we get a total score, which tells us where the mom ranges on a scale of sensitivity. And what's interesting about this scale is that it overlaps with attachment research or concepts, where sensitivity and a secure attachment between a child and their caregiver go hand in hand. They're highly correlated. So someone who is very sensitive to their child would likely have a secure relationship with their child. So with this score, we're able to see if the dyad has somewhat of a secure relationship, which is a proxy or tells us a lot about what could happen in the future, essentially. You know, a secure versus insecure attachment is correlated with a variety of health outcomes, whether it be social development or cognitive or relationships. So that score informs us on many different things.
It's interesting. I'm from the probably generation of looking at attachment of a child of any sort as something bad, because you want to build independence in the child and not much dependence. But you've clearly mentioned secure attachment and insecure attachment. I'm assuming is the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so there's benefits to having a good attachment to your mother or father. Can you speak more about that?
Yes. Yeah. So the concept of a secure attachment is knowing that your caregiver will be there for you in a time of need. So it's that concept of having a secure base for whom you can go back to. So you feel like you can explore your environment. And if anything happens, you have a home base, a secure base that you can go back to for comfort, for reassurance. So it's you mentioned the concept of dependence. It's not a secure child is not overly dependent on their mother. No, in fact, they know that they can go out and explore the world, explore their environment. But if they need anything, they can come back and feel reassured and feel okay to go back out there. So I wouldn't confuse it with being overly dependent or having negative connotation or being too overprotected. Yeah.
And how do you, in your opinion, how do you build a secure attachment with a child? Because part of it is an educational piece to the kids to be able to roam on their own as well. And if they're extremely sensitive kids, I'm assuming, then obviously they need more attention. I'm thinking of it in terms of a growth aspect, where how does the kid slowly grow and not need that secure attachment? Because we as adults, maybe we need to ground ourselves in something else outside of our mom and dad because we're more mature.
Yeah.
When does the change or shift happen between, is it after 6 years old, after 10 years old?
Yeah, I'd say, it goes with age, but it also goes with experiences. So, of course, when you're dealing with an infant, you're going to have to be there for them more often. They would need, their needs need to be met. But then slowly with time, with age, the child becomes a bit more independent. If they can think back about the times where, something happened and they were comforted, maybe in that case, they won't go running back. They'll have a bit more confidence or experiment a little bit more. So it's kind of something that builds with time. It's like building blocks. And it also, like with age, our attachment still influences us to this day. It translates to romantic relationships, how we view others, how we interact with others. It's something that changes with time. And yeah, I don't know if that really answers.
It does. Yeah, it does. It's more of a nuanced approach, I guess.
Yeah.
And, it really depends on the person taking care of the kid and their discretion and what they see fit to a certain extent, because they're the most one observing the child.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what does an insecure attachment look like? What stands out quickly to you from an interaction to go like, this is insecure attachment in front of me?
So I am not trained in how to evaluate secure attachment. There is the most widely used tool is called the strange situation procedure. And it's a lab procedure where a caregiver, mom or dad, are in a room interacting with their child. And, there's a detailed protocol, but essentially a stranger enters the room, tries to interact with the child, and eventually the caregiver leaves the room. So we want to see how the child reacts to this new environment where a stranger comes in. How do they feel about that? How do they feel when their parent leaves the room and leaves them by themselves? And then how do they feel when the caregiver comes back into the room? Are they seeking comfort? Are they angry? Are they ambivalent? So maybe you've heard these terms before, but there are different types of insecure attachment. You can have ambivalent, resistant, anxious. There's different classification systems as well. Some people use a binary system of secure, insecure. There's many different ways to look at it, but essentially or overall, an insecure child would be someone who doesn't feel like they have a secure base to come back to. Maybe they do come back to their secure base, but they don't feel reassured. They're not able to emotionally regulate. Maybe they feel ambivalent. They want their caregiver, but they resent their caregiver. Or in extreme cases, or in cases of child abuse, oftentimes they just would not even go to their caregiver, would kind of avoid the caregiver, or would embrace the stranger, which is, a typically odd behavior. So there's a variety of things that you can look at, but that's kind of an overall picture.
And you're saying that behavior or those behaviors could carry on into adulthood and into our relationships as well as adults?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, you hear about people who are insecurely attached to their partners, so they may need a lot of reassurance. They may fear that their partner will leave them. These are all patterns that start in childhood and can manifest with romantic partners, with friends. These are patterns that are very easily recognizable.
And I'm assuming there's solutions for that for adults. And I know they say the older you get, the harder it is to change course usually or recognize these patterns because they become your comfort zone.
Yeah, we get stuck in our ways. Yeah. But it is true that your attachment can change throughout life with good experiences, with therapy, with education. So it's not this fixed thing where at 3 years old you're stuck like this for life. No, it can be a bit fluid and can improve, can also deteriorate. You could start off with a secure attachment and then have a negative experience with a romantic partner, and that can leave you feeling more anxious, more insecure. Yeah.
Okay. And so you went from breaking the cycle, and you mentioned there was an overlap with the research that you were doing and attachment, which we just spoke about. Yeah. Is this how you transitioned to NYU, or is this how you found a new career or a new place in NYU to work at?
Yeah, essentially, yes. The transition from Canada to the UAE was a bit unplanned, unexpected. It happened a bit, not abruptly, but it just was not something that I had initially planned on doing. But I'm very grateful that I was able to land a job that's very similar to what I was doing. And yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here. Yeah.
Okay. And then how are you finding... because it's been, you said 8 months, about 8 months. How are you finding that transition from being in a place like Canada, different customs, different values, to coming here, different weather, I should say? Did you face any challenges? And how are you liking it so far?
I think I was kind of prepared for the transition because I had, a circle of close people who had lived here and had shared their positive experiences with me. So before leaving, it was mainly excitement. NYU AD is a really great institution, so I was very excited to to have a good job. And yeah, it was mainly excitement. I was ready for a transition in my life. I felt like I was a little bit at a standstill and just wanted something new, a new country, a new job, new culture. Yeah, that's a big one. I've been really liking it so far. The weather is starting to get a bit challenging for me. I think that's the thing. I always ask people what they like about the UAE, what they dislike. And number one thing for dislike is usually the weather. So for me, I prefer the heat. So I'm okay with it so far, but I'm sure in the next few months it's going to get difficult. The culture is really lovely. I've been learning a lot about the history of the UAE, and I really like it. It's very different for me to be walking in public or in the malls and to hear the call to prayer. It's really special. It's a cool experience. Emiratis are very kind from what I've gathered from my experiences with them. Very humble people, very kind and generous. Yeah, overall, it's been really good. My work experience has been great overall. I do notice a difference with Canada where a lot of people were warning me or telling me that the work-life balance here is a lot harder to reach. People work hard here and they're here to hustle and make money and get somewhere in their career. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind. It was a bit of an adjustment for me, but thankfully I work in an institution that, has links to North America. So the culture there is mainly based on what I experienced in Canada. It's very similar to Canadian workplace. But yeah, there's very qualified people and people work hard. They have high expectations, they have high standards, and they conduct good work. That's been my experience. Yeah.
Okay. And the quality of life, how would it compare to Canada? Did you find a difference there?
Definitely, yes. One thing I noticed is the quality of service, like service workers in restaurants or retail shops. The service experience here is really amazing. That's something I really appreciate and I've noticed. So that makes my day-to-day more enjoyable. I like going to the coffee shops and receiving good service. It's really, really nice. That's one big thing. I think there's obviously like cost. Things are expensive in the UAE, same as Canada. I think everywhere in the world is kind of experiencing rises in prices and stuff, but the money that you make here in general, or in my experience, is helping a lot. And I just in my career in general, I feel like I've experienced a big jump, like in terms of salary, in terms of experience, in terms of connections or access to people. Even my title here is not a title that I'd be able to have in Canada. So it's been a transformative experience for me so far, and I really hope that I can continue on that trajectory.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you're very much into mental health. Dare I say, a mental health advocate. So you really care about in terms of your life. I've noticed that you really care about how you're doing throughout the day and making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And also same thing with your group of friends. I feel like you're very conscious with how they're doing as well. Do you find that in Canada they're more aware of mental health than here, or do you find that there's a culture of checking in with yourself here and making sure you're not overly stimulated and anxious and about to have a heart attack from work? Because I know here the culture, as you said, is work, and everybody's ambitious. So it leaves little room for checking in with yourself and making sure that you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your, if you're a caregiver, taking care of your kids, and also connecting with people. having a spirit, so to speak, compared to
Yeah.
just being a robot. So do you find any difference in
Yeah.
the culture here when it comes to that compared to Canada?
Yeah, I do see a difference in the sense that, you know, I've traveled to a few countries in the Middle East as well as Morocco, and just Arab culture in general tends to be more social from what I've seen and from what I can compare to. So I think that is what helps people here more so than talking about mental health and, you know, receiving services. I think that's more the angle in Canada, or that's been my experience at least. Whereas here, people, if they struggle, they rely on their social circle, or their faith is also a big one. So yeah, there's differences in how people deal with mental health. I'm very curious about what are the actual differences in the prevalence of mental health illnesses, and, you know, just overall how do people feel here? Do they feel better than in North America? Do they feel like they have less problems? I'm really curious about that, the cross-cultural aspect. But yeah, I do see some differences in accessibility as well. I think in Canada there's a wide range of access to services. There is an openness, transparency. It's part of a lot of people's dialogue on social media, or even to colleagues. I felt like I could openly talk about things. Not that I don't feel like I can do that here, but it's different.
There.
Yeah, it's normalized a little bit, or it's getting there. And yeah, I haven't been in the UAE long enough to see what the trends are, if there's a shift in the UAE. But I am curious. I don't know if you have any thoughts on mental health here and how people experience it.
I read a study, or I didn't read a study, but I heard about a study. So we need to fact check this after the show. That outside of genetics, the number one predictor of a longer life, a healthier life, is extroversion. Mm-hmm. And so people that are more extroverted typically have a bigger and better social circle, and therefore they're able to weather through life and be more resilient when challenges occur, because they're inevitable. Everybody's going to face challenges, and a good social circle that you can trust would really help you go through it. And so it's interesting that you mentioned that you find people more social here and they have a bigger social circles versus Canada, where it's more of an individualistic society, and you need to pay for that service, where it's for free here. I can talk to my buddies and my friends and feel better instantly. So I think there's some truth to that.
Absolutely. And I notice it. It's very subtle, but even just the other day, I was at the mall, just, you know, kind of people watching. That's something I love to do here. And just seeing how families or friends greet each other in a mall, it's you feel the difference. You feel the love. You feel the support. You know, like fathers kissing each other's daughters on the heads, and like really showing a deep respect, a deep affection towards your friends' children. It's so different. Yeah, I really feel a sense of connection here. The people are there for each other, and it's really lovely to see.
Yeah. And I think you made a comment to me before, and I didn't notice this until you mentioned it, but you go to most malls and it's all families.
Yeah.
There's so many kids running around.
Yeah.
And I think one benefit of being in this part of the world is it's very family friendly. Like it's easier to raise and build a family here because it's encouraging. Even the malls make it easier for you. Once they built them, it's like it makes it easier for you to get your kids there, put them in you know, there's activities for them to do, and it's a social setting for a family, not for single people to a certain extent.
Yeah.
There is that too in the UAE. If you're a single individual that wants to, you know, not do that and do other things. But I think this system, the environment here is set up for to help families succeed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's very true. And helping people succeed in general. I mean, the UAE takes care of its people, and that's very clear to see. I think the people who are lucky enough to come here and work here, they do something good with what they have, and they're kind of like uplifted to do more, to do better. So it's a great environment for families, for individuals, for anybody really. Yeah.
Okay. You were a ballerina.
Yes.
When you were younger? You
Yeah.
don't do this anymore, I'm assuming?
No, I don't. It was a big part of my childhood. I did it from the age of 7 to 17 or 18 when I finished high school. Yeah, it was a big part of my identity.
Is it as hard as they make it out to be in movies, where it's like the stress of practice and performance is very, very high?
It's very difficult. It's really, really hard to perfect. It's an art. And yeah, like one of my clear memories of going to classes is having someone pick at you for the smallest little detail. The smallest muscle needs to be engaged, or this rib needs to line up with your hips, or like to the degree of how much you're pointing your toes. It's very, a perfectionist would go crazy. And
well, that's how you develop a perfectionist, I find.
Yes.
That's how.
Yeah, that's true as well. But no, it's also a space where, well, in my experience, anybody could join. I was by no means perfect in the studio, and I enjoyed it a lot. And it's an art that builds discipline. It builds resilience and like a sense of toughness. There's always a next level. There's always a dance that could be made harder, or you can do more repetitions. There's always more. So I'm really grateful that I did it for so many years. It really built my character, I think, and I would recommend it to anybody. It's a great form of exercise. It's fun. And I think the thing I gained the most from it were friendships. Some of my greatest friendships in childhood were friends from ballet classes. So yeah, it was just a really great environment. We would get so excited when performances came up. In the winter time, we would always have an annual show for Christmas, and that was the most exciting time of the year. Really getting excited with your friends and trying on costumes and rehearsing our dances. It was so special.
Okay. How did your family take it when you mentioned to them that you wanted to move all the way across the world to the UAE? Different culture, different traditions, far for them to visit.
Yeah, it was not easy. I'm sure you can imagine. Definitely not easy. A bit of apprehension, it's kind of like the unknown. At that point, I had traveled to the Middle East only once, to Jordan and Egypt. So even for me, it was a bit unknown, despite all the information that was being fed to me. I hadn't experienced it myself. So for my family, who had never traveled to this part of the world, it was very unknown. And it was a bit scary. I had to reassure them a lot and, explain to them what I'm going to do there, and here are the perks of this job, and here's what people there can achieve. It's really just about educating and showing them examples. And of course, the distance is not going to change. That's the hardest part of it, I think, is being far from family. But it's a sacrifice, and on my end, I feel like the sacrifice is worth it. I don't know how they feel about it. Maybe they would rather I come back. But yeah, who knows what the future holds. But it wasn't easy at first, but they ended up visiting and they really loved the UAE. Mm-hmm. They even considered extending their trip here. That's how much they liked it. So I'm sure they understand my choice to be here.
That's positive.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. In terms of career, where does your curiosity take you? Where would you like it to take you over the next few years? Because I know you're in a very interesting space, especially where we probably need more of that here. I know in North America, like you said, the discussion around mental health and psychology in general, there's a lot of access to it. Whereas here, I see very big initiatives, but it's still at the starting point. So do you find any opportunities for you here to grow, whether personally or from an entrepreneurship perspective, for yourself or for the team you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something I ask myself almost every day. What do I want to do next, or what's my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan? So I'm in the process of kind of searching, networking, and just gathering information on what's even possible here. One thing that's great is that, as we've talked about, there's a big emphasis here on families' well-being. The resources are there, the services are there. I can tell that families' well-being is important to the UAE. So I think there's a good space here for me to grow. I would love to maybe have like a greater impact on the community directly. So whether that's working with community organizations or collaborating with them in some capacity, I think I would love to do that. And I would love to know, what are some of the questions that are important to address here? What do we want to know about the people who live here? And how can we improve their lives? And I want to be a part of that conversation, and I just need to figure out how I'm going to make way for that. What is going to be the path to get there? That's something I need to figure out.
Okay. No, I see a lot of potential, honestly, for your work in this region, and it'll be challenging, I think, because you're breaking a lot of stigma that might still exist just because of traditions, but that means opportunity to make an impact specifically. So I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on the show. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was really great to have this conversation.